From the National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petra with your routine weekly briefing for Central North Carolina, or Monday morning briefing, covered the period today through Sunday this week, the 14th through the 20th of December. And we've got our first kind of wintry weather event to talk about in this briefing. But before we do that, let's just jump real quick to what's happening right now, because we've got some decent rain falling across our area right now that we're dealing with. And I thought I'd first kind of set the stage and show you what's going on right now. There is a cold front, and you know how you could tell the difference between a cold front. Look at these readings here. These are temperatures, 67, 73, 68, 73, and then just look at the difference in Raleigh, 47, 50 in Charlotte. So clearly there is a dividing line, or a boundary, as we call it, a cold front that divides warm air from colder air. And the cold air advances, or is advancing eastward, so it's a cold front. And it's typically along these fronts where, obviously, where we have precipitation, that the front is a lifting mechanism and one of many ingredients to help develop this rain. But look how cold it is in the central U.S. Obviously, we're not going to see readings that cold behind the cold front, but certainly it's going to turn a little cooler tonight. We'll have readings dipping down back, around the freezing mark for lows, and then a little cooler tomorrow. But let me just kind of jump to the live radar, a little bit closer view, and this is what's going on right now. You could see the actual cold front is probably aligned along this batch of heavier rain right here, moving across the eastern coastal plain, and just some light lingering rain behind that front. That's all headed off to the east fairly quickly and should be out of here later this afternoon. Now, the intensity of this type of precip generally is just under what we would need for major flash flooding to occur. So I think, other than ponding of water on roadways, maybe some elevated streams that could come out of their banks, we're not expecting any major flooding. And let me show you real quick the forecast for when that's going to get out of here, if I can get to the right screen. This is a reflectivity simulation. Let me make this screen a little smaller so we can fit it all on one screen here. And this is basically a simulation of when the rain's going to get out of here. And this is basically, this time frame right here it's a little bit overdone, but this represents the current time frame, basically right now, an hour from now, 2 hours from now, 3 hours from now. So that would be basically 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and so on. This is 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Bottom line is look at, this is the afternoon period, and look how quickly it exits, right? So it'll be east of all of central North Carolina, according to this simulation, by 4 p.m. Okay, so by 4 p.m., all this should be gone, all right? And then it'll be clearing out and turning cooler. So I'm going to get rid of this so it doesn't interfere with our slides. And let's jump back to the slides real quick here. And just a quick look at the pattern. And in the upper left, there's that front that I talked about in the today period that's causing all this rain. That's going to be ending by sunset, probably even before sunset, maybe 4 p.m., and then cooler temps to follow. Now, there'll be a brief period of high pressure that builds in for the daytime tomorrow, but unfortunately, there's a low pressure system that's going to be emerging out of the southern Rockies and moving east pretty quickly during the daytime tomorrow. And that weather system will probably spread some precip up across the Carolinas and into our area beginning tomorrow, late tomorrow night. And because of the cold air mass that will be building in behind today's front, that will be building in tonight and during the day tomorrow, there'll be just enough cold air at the surface, probably kind of from the triad westward and northward, to maybe allow tomorrow night's precip to start as a period of light freezing rain across the triad region. And basically that could linger through Wednesday morning. And then eventually, with these types of weather systems where you have one low pressure system going up across the Ohio Valley and another one forming along the coast, the split low system, typically that will eventually allow the precip, even in the triad, to change to rain as the system and the air temperatures at the surface warm up during the daytime Wednesday. So let me just kind of more succinctly package that statement. Rain ends today at 4 p.m. We're dry tonight and the daytime tomorrow. Colder air comes in during that time. And then we have a weather system moves up tomorrow night, spreads a little bit of light freezing rain across the triad in points north and west tomorrow, late tomorrow night and Wednesday, and rain everywhere else. So if you're south and if you're east of the triad, all rain. And even in the triad, it should change to all rain during the daytime Wednesday. Okay, we'll get to amounts here in a minute. Okay, so once we get that weather system out of here, it'll be dry and cooler Thursday through Saturday, thanks to that big area of high pressure you see down in the lower left. And then, yet again, another fast-moving weather system will move in here from the west. It'll spread some light rain. Right now, it looks like our air temperatures recover enough late in the week to allow that next weather system on Sunday to be rain everywhere, including the triad. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit more and focus a little bit more on tomorrow night and Wednesday. Okay, so we emailed this slide out earlier in the morning, and I just wanted to show this again to remind folks if you didn't get it. This is the headline: wintry weather possible Tuesday night and Wednesday, mainly across the triad region. So basically, the graphic you see in the lower left there kind of indicates this is kind of a new product, a new way of conveying. We call this the winter storm impact graphic, where basically it's an impacts slide. So in other words, yellow means more impacts than, say, light blue, right? Orange would mean greater impacts than where there's yellow. Red would mean greater impacts than where there's orange, and so on. You can see this slide there. No impacts, limited impacts for light blue, minor impacts, and so on. So you could see basically from the northern triad, the northern northwest Piedmont, the foothills, the area that's yellow, that's where we expect the greatest freezing rain impacts to occur. Now, you might be wondering, well, wait a minute, you just said the triad, why is the blue extended all the way over toward, Henderson and maybe even Durham and down toward, down toward Troy and maybe Albemarle? That's basically means that's about the furthest south and furthest east that freezing rain could possibly start out. In other words, if we were wrong, if we were off a little bit, and the freezing rain occurred a little bit further south and east than what we were predicting, that's about as far south and east as it could begin, okay? If you're not in the light blue, your chances are just about zero that you're going to see any freezing rain, okay? So I-95 east, from Wadesboro to Rockingham or to Fayetteville, no freezing rain, all rain for you, nothing to worry about. Okay, now the further you go north and west, the more likely you're going to run into freezing rain that will last a little bit longer. Okay, so there's still some uncertainties. There's always uncertainties with winter weather. Winter weather is always difficult to predict here in the Carolinas just because of the complexities of the region. But basically just know that the further north and west you go in the triad, the better your chances are for freezing rain and the greater the likelihood for impacts. Now you might be wondering, well, can you give us a rough idea of how much? Well, this is kind of a first guess at how much freezing rain we might get on Wednesday. Okay, so the triad region and points north and west from there should begin, should be prepared rather, for light accumulations of ice beginning as early as Tuesday night and lasting through the morning hours on Wednesday before the precipitation, even there, changes to all rain. Now, what I would be prepared for is some impacts to roads and travel, especially bridges and elevated roadways. Okay, isolated power outages are possible, but we don't think this is going to be enough to warrant widespread, branches breaking and power outages and that sort of thing. Okay, it typically takes about a quarter of an inch of ice before we begin to see branches breaking and branches falling into power lines and causing power outages. And you can see we only have two levels of shades of green, right? The lightest shade of green is up to, but at or below, up to 1/10 of an inch of rain. So basically very, very minor freezing rain amounts. The little darker green, the middle shade of green, is 1/10 to 1/4 inch of freezing rain. So we're talking from Winston-Salem north and west. That's where we think there could be, potentially a tenth or maybe even a little bit more than a tenth of an inch of ice accumulation. So that's sort of our first guess. Now, if you're wondering, well, how do I get to this web page? Okay, this web page, I'm going to email these slides as we always do, and I included a link down below the map. And if you want to explore around, worst case scenario would be clicking on the 95th. If you go to this web page, let me show you here. And but if you go to this link right here, and I'll email these out, and just try these different, like this is like the 5 and 10th percentile would be the bare minimum to expect. The 90 and 95th would be like, what's the worst case scenario? And then you could play around with the different times up here at the top to get a sense for when it may begin and end. Okay, so sorry, my drawings are a little bit messy there. But basically, play around with this website. But this is the 50th percentile is usually a good indicator of what we're probably going to see. Okay, so triad north and west is where we think there could be some impact from this. Okay. And of course, as we head through the day today and tomorrow, we'll send out more briefing slides, a full briefing package, that sort of thing. So we'll be having more briefings than what we're doing right here. Okay, so 1 to 2 inches of rain with today's system, and that includes what has fallen already, last night's rain, for instance, and then another 1/2 to 1 inch of liquid equivalent with Wednesday's weather system, and then just a 1/2 inch of rain on Sunday. Dry all the other days that I didn't mention. So the 7-day rainfall total, and that includes like freezing rain that's melted. That's what I mean by rainfall, liquid equivalent. We're looking about 3 to 4 inches of liquid across much of central North Carolina. So a little bit of, that'll keep the streams and rivers going, but probably not enough to cause any kind of flooding issues. All right, what about flash flooding? Well, rainfall amounts with today's and Wednesday's weather systems should remain less than what is typically needed for flash flooding to occur. Nevertheless, motorists should always slow down on wet roads to avoid hydroplaning. And what about severe thunderstorm potential? Well, we could see an isolated rumble of thunder. Well, the risk for that's really wrapping up pretty quickly here today. But even on Wednesday, there could be a rumble of thunder. But the best chance for severe weather in terms of severe thunderstorms should remain along the immediate coast. All right. Looking further down the road, so next week, we're talking the week of Christmas week here, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day week here. We're looking at generally above normal temperatures. I think most people will be appreciative of that. And odds lean toward above normal precip for central North Carolina. So it might be, this train of weather systems looks like it might continue to move toward us and bring us some rain through that period. All right. So wrapping this up, I'm sorry we went a little long today. Of course, this is our first winter weather event of the season, so definitely warranted information here for a little longer. But today's wet weather will wind down this afternoon, ending by 4 p.m. Cooler temps to follow. We're looking at dry weather Tuesday, well, tonight and Tuesday, and then the next weather system will move into our area Tuesday night. Precip likely, I should say. That word may is probably likely. I'll fix that before I email the slides. But precip likely will begin as a period of light freezing rain across the Triad region, and that may linger through Wednesday morning before changing to rain. Elsewhere, once you get east and south of the Triad, it's rain everywhere. Okay, so if you're Raleigh, if you're I-95 east, if you're Fayetteville, if you're Wadesboro, if you're Rockingham, it's all rain for you. Okay, dry and cooler weather Thursday through Saturday. And then a quick moving weather system will spread some rain, and I've underlined the word rain because I don't see any risk of freezing rain anywhere with this. So rain on Sunday. Now, keep in mind the Triad and points north and west from there should be prepared for light accumulations of ice beginning as early as Tuesday night, lasting through the morning hours on Wednesday before precip there changes the rain. Expect some impacts to roads and travel, especially bridges and elevated roadways. Isolated power outages are possible. Those power outages are most likely from the north and west of Winston-Salem, where the ice accumulations might be a little bit greater. Okay, rainfall with today's and Wednesday's weather should remain less than what's needed for flash flooding to occur, although motorists should always slow down on wet roads to avoid hydroplaning. And you can get a sense there, although you might be wondering, why is there freezing rain symbol missing from this graphic at the bottom? And I just didn't have room to include, one for the west, one for the east. But this is more or less just to kind of give you a rough sense of when we're going to have weather around and what the temperature trends are going to be. So So if you're in the triad and you're wondering, well, why does this not represent my area? I'm sorry, I just ran out of room on this slide here. So definitely check us out at weather.gov/Raleigh, weather.gov/Raleigh, where you can get your very specific for your location 5-day at a glance graphic. Okay, so that wraps up our weekly briefing, our routine briefing here for Monday morning, and we obviously are in briefing mode. We're in winter weather mode here at the National Weather Service in Raleigh. So we'll be doing more PowerPoint slides. We'll be emailing those out. And I'm guessing some point tomorrow, although I haven't scheduled it yet, I'll probably do a live webinar like this here at some point during the daytime tomorrow. So check your email for details on that. If you're not on our email list, then obviously just check our YouTube page, because we always post these to YouTube when we're done. So with that, definitely stay tuned and check us out at weather.gov/Raleigh.